Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 362, presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And make sure to go subscribe to us on Bruins Ringside on YouTube. Lots of great stuff coming. We got 6 podcasts a week across Poke the Bear, Pucks with Haggs, Bruins Beat. We got analysis, live streams, interviews, scrums, all that great stuff. And if you don't like looking at us and you just like to listen, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Podbean. There's so many, wherever you get them. And there's lots of other great CLNS content as well, be it Patriot Trespass, Celtics All Access. Lots of great stuff. Over there, that's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofski. Connor, what's up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. It's weird doing 2 Poke the Bears with you in a week. It's because Ty Anderson is gone. We can't find him. He ran away.
He's gone.
Vanished.
He ran. Yeah. If anyone sees him, I don't know if he's running amok in Brighton. Like, we'll have to get everyone on the case. You get Spoke Z, get all the people in Brighton be patrolling, seeing where Ty Anderson has gone. Maybe he went to listen. If he's up at Canopy Lake Park, who are we to judge? Like, if anything, I'd be jealous that he's on the minor lost souls without us. Like,
with
he's probably
Domino's.
having a blast. Yeah.
With dominoes in hand. Maybe he's
Yes.
at Canopy Lake Park with dominoes in hand.
God,
Yeah.
one can wish.
God, we're going to have to put on a crack squad of smart detectives to get on the case of where in the world is Ty Anderson. We don't know.
Well, we
where
can't
he
bring
went.
Spoke Z in then if that's the case.
No, that crosses him off the list, doesn't it? Crack squad crosses him off the list. No thanks. Sorry, Spoke Z. I was sorry, Spoke. So that was his first name. Z was his last name.
Yes.
Yeah, Ty is away. He's in Chicago. So he's does that every year, right? He goes to Chicago like this time every year. So he is off enjoying, I think, like a music festival or something. Good for him. He deserves it.
Getting that Chicago Uno's pizza.
That's right. Instead of Domino's, he's getting the chain pizza out there of Uno's. Lots of great stuff. Portillo's, classic in Chicago. So I don't know. Chicago deep dish pizza I like, but nothing beats a regular slice of pizza.
No, I don't like that cheese casserole. I like a lot of other stuff in Chicago, like Italian beef. Love that. Love again, Chicago hot dog. Deep dish, nah. If I want to eat just like a block of cheese, I can just like open up my fridge and do that. I don't need
start gnawing at a thing of Parmesan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't need that.
I don't know. Like, people are pissed. I don't like Detroit style pizza. I'll say that. I'm not a fan of Detroit style pizza. That's my I don't like that. Deep dish I can get down with. It's not on the same level as like a New York slice, regular slice, but I don't hate Chicago. Detroit
slice.
New Haven's
Goat.
goated. Like there's a Detroit style pizza near me, and it's really good. People love it. It's just not my thing. I'm not a huge fan of it. So nothing against the people who do that. It's just not my favorite kind of pizza.
Teach their own.
You teach their own, exactly. Day 2 of camp has come and gone. We were there on Friday. Group A and Group B lines stayed the same. Again, it's 2 days, so how much can you read into it? First preseason game is Sunday. With the lines being what they are, I think one area that you can look at and say, Blumel still with Zacha. And there seems to be this feeling that Blumel has a high ceiling. That rhymed, actually. There seems to be a feeling that Blumel has a high ceiling. I can't think of anything else. That's where it ends. It starts and ends.
It's all right. You got one line down. You got one bar down.
That's all we needed. There is a question of like, is he a potential vital contributor to this team? And from the sounds of what Sturm is saying and from what Zacha said, and I didn't hear Blumel on Thursday, but things that he likely said, there's a chance that he's going to get a legit shot at this team.
Yeah, I think when you go into like the start of training camp, right, you always have to be careful in terms of getting swept up or getting carried away with the lines you see for the first couple of days, right? But I think that Marco Sturm, and I think one thing we've probably picked up from him the first couple of days of speaking to the media is that he's pretty, I think, transparent about like his line of thinking of like kind of the same way I think that they say he's very direct with players. I think he's very direct of like, this is what my approach is. This is what we tried to do today. This is what I'm looking to get out of this. This is our faults. This is how we're going to try to correct it. Like, he's been very, I think, black and white, cut and dry, which is, I think, refreshing, especially when it's this team that has so much up in the air, so many question marks with the roster, right? So I thought it was kind of illuminating what he mentioned on Thursday about, as they're trying to figure out who fits in where on what line and all that stuff. He's trying to find pairs, essentially, guys to put together to try to find that chemistry. I think we can all assume that, the top line is most likely going to be Pastrnak, Geeky, Lindholm. The fourth line, I wouldn't be surprised if it's, Acimont, Corrali, and Kastelik. They were skating again today, and that one does make a lot of sense in terms of, guys that can skate well, are physical, all that stuff. So that's kind of like finding out what that middle six grouping is. And I think for the Bruins, they're clearly, I think, really intrigued with what Blumel has done. Marco Sturm has mentioned that he faced off against him at the AHL level. We know that he was a very productive scorer with Texas in the AHL. Sturm mentioned that he's got the similar approach in the power play as Leon Draisaitl. So get the banner going.
There it
And
is.
Switches jersey number, all that stuff.
We have Leon Draisaitl at home.
Exactly. What else do you need? We don't. Talk about all the time we wasted last year. I've been talking about Leon Draisaitl. We got him already. No, I think, in terms of just what Sturm has said about like the tools that Blumel has, and it's not just that he's got a great one timer. If you watch like his tape with Texas, he's scored in a variety of ways. Can score off the rush, has a good wrist shot, can do a lot of everything offensively. And I think if you're the Bruins, and it's very clear that this team, their ways of generating consistent 5-on-5 offense is up in the air. You need to have these kind of ancillary guys step up and produce by committee. And so I think it's clear that they're very intrigued with what Blumel can offer. And I think in terms of just the first couple of days, I think it's pretty clear that they want to see what they have in this guy before turning to other players as well. So wouldn't be surprised. Like, I don't know if like Blumel and Zacha are going to play in the first preseason game, but I think as they start going through the first couple of practices, the first couple of preseason games, I wouldn't be surprised if those two guys are kind of skating together. And I think they want Blumel in a spot where they can, give him a middle six grouping to work with, but also a guy in Zacha who's, a fellow Czech guy who speaks the same language. I think they want to make Blumel comfortable and give him a pretty long runway here to see what he can do, because they certainly need it. And if he's going to be a guy that is going to break out, they want to kind of leave no stone unturned in terms of what he can provide this team moving forward.
Well, I think when you talk about like him breaking out, you need to put him in the best possible position to succeed. And if you put him, it's not like you're sticking him on the fourth line or you're sticking him with guys he's not comfortable with. Clearly, there's a comfort with Zacha, be it they speak the same language. I think Zacha mentioned that Blumel was staying at his house for a bit of time, did the dishes and everything, which is fantastic. It's a sign of a great line mate right there. Can he do the dishes or not? But I do think there is legitimate intrigue with him, where, we say this every year, where it's like, the Bruins could kill for someone, to find a guy like this, someone that kind of comes out of nowhere, produces at the NHL level, breaks out a bit. We say this about the Lightning. Like, the Lightning always have a guy like that who just out of thin air comes in and makes a big impact. And this is the kind of year, this is the roster. I mean, if this is 22-23, not the case. Blumel's not coming in and cracking that lineup. But with this lineup, the way it is, desperate for 5-on-5 scoring, and we'll get into it in a little bit of how Sturm kind of views certain lines, Blumel deserves a legit shot. And I think he will get one. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, we see in the first couple of days of camp, he's with Zacha. And I think there's something legit to take away from that, in that they really like him. They really like him. And, I would imagine he gets a long runway. Now, how does that make a guy like Fabian Lysell feel? How does that, work internally with a Matt Patra or something? And again, who cares? Like, who cares? You got to win hockey games. You got to score goals. And if Blumel's the guy to do it, then that's what you got to do. But I do wonder, if they continue to shake things up in the next couple of days of camp to get different looks with different guys. I know it's only been 2 days, but I do wonder if they start to take a look at, do you move Patra with NHL guys? Do you move Lysell in with other NHL guys? They got to earn it, but I do wonder if we see it.
Yeah, and I think it does feel like you look at what they're trying to do with Zacha and playing him down the middle, and I think it's all about And we kind of mentioned this on Thursday, right? Of what we're seeing from the early look at these lines, and maybe we're just projecting a little bit as to what the opening night lineup could be. But as far as like the way they're structuring things, it does feel like they want Middlestat and Zacha to be on two separate lines as centermen, which adds a lot of intrigue, but also adds maybe even more questions, right, in terms of who's going to fall into place where. Because I think we all were assuming that, to start the year, well, this team has so few like sure bets in terms of like consistent like scores that like, all right, well, we know what the top line is. Might as well put all your eggs in one basket on the second line with Zacha, Middlestat, Arvidsson, and see how that pans out. And then the third line's kind of a hodgepodge of guys out there. It doesn't feel like that's the case with what Marco Sturm's kind of envisioning with that group. So I think for them, it's all about trying to find some balance, but also with a guy like Blumel, you know, if it's not going to be a surprise in terms of I think what the strengths and weaknesses of this team is. Marco Sturm has mentioned it since July that scoring is going to be an issue for this team. So I think you look at what Blumel has done in the AHL level. That's a guy that I don't think you give him one or two preseason games, and unless he scores a hat trick, you're like, all right, back to the AHL with you. It was worth a shot. Like I think you want to exhaust every opportunity to see what you have in a player like that, because now is the time to stick with those kinds of players. Now is the time to go through maybe some growing pains and see if a guy can end up, hanging around at the NHL level. The Bruins don't have the luxury or the depth or the talent in place right now to be very selective in terms of where guys can slot into the middle six group. If Blumel, and again, the onus is going to fall on Blumel, right, to play well during the preseason. But if he shows that there's something there, and there's especially an offensive element that he can provide at the NHL level, I think they're going to give him every opportunity to stick around and see what he can do.
100%. And I think, even with Zacha, and you just alluded to it Zacha was speaking on Friday and mentioned that it's not set in stone, but Sturm likes him a lot at center. And that's sort of where he's going to be until things change. And maybe he'll get some looks on the wing, but he likes him more as a center. And you get into the whole thing of like, all right, Elias Lindholm's your number one center. He's likely centering Geeky and Pasternak. You got Middlestat on line 2. Don't quite know who his line mates are going to be. And it might not, Middlestat might be line 3, but given the way that Sturm described line 3 on Thursday, I would certainly give the edge to Zacha over Middlestat in terms of going against other teams' top lines. But it is an interesting thing of like, who's fitting on the wings? If you're going to go strong down the middle, or as strong as you can be in terms, and I know people say, oh, this center core sucks, but like as strong as this group is, Lindholm, Middlestat, Zacha, and you keep Zacha down the middle, I do wonder who plays with Zacha. You have Blumel, seems like a clear guy on one side, and then it's who's on the other side there. And I think that's going to be the real interesting thing to track. And can Zacha drive a line? That's another partial thing that I think you got to see. Because again, when Zacha was down the middle, a year or two ago, it's with, high-end NHL teammates. I know he spent some time with Pasternak. But it'll be interesting to see who they put him with during camp and then as the season starts.
Yeah, and it's almost like if you're going through the same exercise that Marco Sturm has mapped out about finding like the pairs that can kind of fill out the middle six group of the forward core. Yeah, maybe it is Zacha and Blumel, and then it's insert player here on whatever that line is. It's the same with like I would imagine where I think the Bruins want to see what a guy like Casey Middlestat can do as a offensive threat, right? Like they brought him in because he was a little bit of a different profile of a player. They wanted to add more skills, some more playmaking to their lineup. Again, I don't know how much you really can glean from what he did last year when you look at like the supporting cast he had. So maybe for them, it's like, all right, Zacha and Blumel are maybe more of like your third line because like Zacha's more of maybe a more defensive type player. And then like your second line, that's kind of like your experimental like offensive grouping, right? Maybe that's Middlestat and Arvidsson, and then it's someone else that has upside, or maybe it's I don't know. Is it Janot? And I know Janot has like skated a lot with Zacha and Blumel, but maybe you want a big body with a few playmakers and just see if he can kind of be like just the guy that cleans up around the net. Maybe it's you put him with Zacha and Blumel and see what he can provide there. Like it almost feels like if the Bruins are moving forward with the plan of, having like established NHL talent down the middle, like let's say it is Lindholm, Middlestat, Zacha, Corrali, it opens up kind of a new way we have to look at this lineup and where guys fit into place of like, all right, who are the other two wings there if it is the pairs we've mentioned before, and how that pans out, whether that means is there as much of an opportunity for younger players as we originally thought, right? In terms of like maybe like the Mintons, the Patras, the Providence type players. A guy like Husandinov, right? Where does he fit into the equation? Like where the rest of that middle six pans out is remains to be seen. But it's an interesting wrinkle if that's how they approach things with building down the middle with established NHL talent.
And again, it building down the middle with established NHL talent puts you in a position where you have a center who's supportive defensively or driving offense and playing the way Sturm wants him to play, supporting guys low in the defensive zone, things like that. I want to get more into sort of that bottom six and who might be fitting in there and who might be on the outs just by Sturm's comments. But first, our friends at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this offseason on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. We're recording this on a Friday, right before a big football Sunday. I got two picks I really like. Patrick Mahomes, more than 0.5 passing yards. That's right. That's a 99% discount. And I like CeeDee Lamb, more than 83.5 receiving yards against the Bears on Sunday. CeeDee Lamb has been red hot, and I think that continues this weekend. Prize Pick is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. I know this because this happens to me. I like flex plays. I'm not always perfect. I like to be right, but I can't always be perfect. So I love the flex play. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Good to be right. So Sturm spoke on the third line on Friday. He spoke on the fourth line as well, saying he wants his bottom six to be hard-nosed lines. Fourth line seems, as you said, Acimont, Kastelik, and
Corrali.
I'm blank. I can't believe I forgot Sean Corrali. Those, I think everybody understands what those three are up to do. That's not a hard thing to figure out how they're going to play. And I think, by the way,
I kind of like that fourth line. Too.
I like that fourth line. That fits their identity exactly. Like this is them. That's if they're going to beat teams. I'm not saying they're scoring goals, but that's kind of the way you want them to play.
Yeah, they're kind of they are a pain in the ass. If especially Acimont's a guy that every time you see him when he played the Bruins, he was such a pain in the ass. Like I think Corrali is still a guy that is he the same player he was maybe in his first year? Where I think he was one of the honestly like more underrated 4C. Like there's some of those guys that I think have had that title for a couple of years now. You look at like Carolina always feels like they've got one of the best fourth line centers. Nick Dowd's been that kind of role with Washington for the last couple of years. But Corrali was like a game changer during his last few years with the Bruins as just a guy that big body, skates really well, can give you 20 plus points in a season, was good in the postseason. So I don't know if you're expecting that same thing, but in terms of, I think, what the identity of what Sturm is looking for, right, of speed, forechecking, and kind of, I think, a simplified approach on the offensive side of things, having those three guys out there who kind of play that style of just straight line, winning pucks, throwing their weight around, I think they're going to blend well, I think, with what Sturm is trying to preach, especially in that bottom six grouping.
100%. And then you get into that third line, which I asked Sturm about this on
Great question.
on Friday. Oh, thank you so much. Just I was up all night thinking about it.
Yes.
And I was curious because it's like, you have obviously your top six has to score. You got your fourth line, which, as we just talked about, makes sense. But then what's your third line? What are you looking for out of that line? Are they going to be a two-way line? Are they going to score a lot? Are you looking for it to be with young players and sort of an opportunity for them to get chances? And he mentions that he wants it to be a line that can go up against other teams' top lines when necessary. That's notoriously not what younger players are for. He mentioned like Nathan McKinnon in his line. I don't think you're putting young guys out there against those guys. Now, that doesn't take out Fraser Mitten. I think Fraser Mitten makes sense for that. But again, as we just said, if you look at Lindholm, Middlestat, Zacha, and Corrali as your centers. Well, Minton is a center. And I think you want Minton to stay a center. He doesn't make a lot of sense on the wing. Takes Potter out of the equation for the third line, most likely. But then you wonder, like, does a Victor Arvidsson move down to that third line? And does Matt Poitras slot up in the top six somewhere on the wing? Sturm's mentioned that. You have Tanner Jeannot. You mentioned this earlier. Is Tanner Jeannot going to play with a guy like Zacha on that third line potentially? Like, I'm very curious what they end up doing wing-wise for that third line, because yes, you want younger players to get experience and they need it. But if you're going to play a certain way and you're going to have those third liners go up against another team's top forward line, you do need a little experience if that's the route you're going to take.
Yeah, I think it just shows you, Evan, right? Like just how much feels like it's either up in the air or how much things can change in a hurry as far as the Bruins and what they're trying to build with this forward core, and how much I think is still to be determined, whether it's through training camp or the preseason. Because as we said, when we went through back in June and July and August when we had nothing to talk about, we were like looking at, opening night, like way too early predictions. And I think we all assumed, as we said earlier, like, oh, second line, that's easy, right? You put in Zacha, Middlestat, Arvidsson, and then we kind of mapped out, or at least I did, like the third line being kind of your opportunity to give the young guys some run. Maybe it's Jeannot as a kind of like the enforcer, the guy watching out for Poitras or Lysell or Minton, something else like that. But as you said, I don't know if those are the guys you want out there to be kind of your shutdown grouping. So maybe it is Zacha with Blumel and Jeannot. Is it like Minton? Do you put him on the wing just to get him some reps, even though that's not ideal? I also wouldn't put Minton as like your 4C as well. Like I'd rather you put him in a middle six spot, but it just kind of, I don't really have the answers yet, right? It just, I think, raises more questions as to like how this group kind of gets mapped out, because I think you want to see younger guys get extended runs here, but where do they best fit, and what is Marco Sturm also trying to get out of this group? Because as much as I think the Bruins, both for what we want to see and I think for their long-term success, you want to see younger guys get those opportunities. Marco Sturm also wants this team to get off to a good start here. Like if they want to be competitive, do you lead more of like, all right, first game, you're going up against Ovechkin and DC and that top grouping. Are you rolling out Patra and Lysell and Husendinov to match up against the Ovechkin line? Or is it Zacha, Blumel, Jeannot, right? Like if you're a first year head coach trying to get a good start, set the tone right away, you're probably leaning more on that veteran group, even if maybe it's not as exciting for the long-term success of this team, right? But that's kind of what you have to weigh as a coach in terms of towing the line between, hey, getting identity right, getting us back on track, while also ensuring that the long-term success of this team is building up.
Well, this is again where, like, if you're going to view your third line like that, are you really going to live up to, and Sturm's mentioned this a number of times, young players getting in the lineup? Like that does not bode well for them. And then I would also say, I know it's only been 2 days of camp, but are they not super confident in the young guys coming up and making an impact? Are they not, are they not enthralled with Lysell or Patra or Husninov's not young, but or a Beecher or something in the first couple days? Like where they're like, you know what, third line, that's going to be a potential shutdown line as well, because they have the personnel to do it. Like you have enough guys that you've signed or brought in that you have enough in the bottom six that you can put two lines together who are reliable, who are just
200 foot. You don't have to really not worry about them, but like if you're trying to get a shutdown line that's kind of boring, you have a lot of guys that can do that.
You have personnel for that, no problem. Probably like top 5 in the league in that, and that's fine. But if you are going to develop young guys, and you've said you wanted to, and you want to give them opportunities, that third line kind of looked like the line where there was some leeway. Now I get it; it might not be conducive to winning or winning games 2-1, which is I think what this team is going to have to do. But I just wonder then where are the young guys going to slot in? And they got to earn it. I agree. Like I'm not going to sit here and say you hand these guys spots in the lineup, but who I guess who are Middlestat's wings? Maybe they look at it and say, you know what? A Lysell makes more sense in the top 6 than putting him on the third line, or a Matt Poitras makes more sense up there. Maybe that's the move. Maybe that's the route that they take. Because again, like if Zacha's, we've talked about this a little bit already. If Zacha's a center, who are the wings? Is Jeannot in the top 6? Do they want Jeannot more as a third liner? Like it is sort of a mixed bag. And I think after that first line, now it's become clear that First and fourth lines, fairly set. I don't think much is going to change there. But those middle two lines, I think, are where you're going to see the most change and the most sort of shuffling the deck.
Yeah, no. And again, a lot of it's going to fall on the players themselves to either change that approach or change the coach's thinking. Like we've mentioned Zacha and Blumel. What if Blumel doesn't pop during the preseason, right? And like even like we look at right now, you're looking maybe at the big picture of like that third line is going to be a no man's land for younger players. Well, what if Lysell lights it up? Like I thought, like for as much as we've talked about Lysell and this is his last chance, what have you. I think on Thursday when it was like a very fast paced practice, I thought Lysell was really noticeable. He was like even like they were doing forechecking, was like using his body, was like really involved. Now it's kind of one of the knocks against him. So if he comes in with his hair on fire and has a great preseason, yeah, I think Marco Sturm's not going to be like, well, he's been really good, but like I already said what my third line's going to be. It's like no, I think a coach has to change his approach or augment his lineup construction if it means create an opportunity for a guy that's earned that spot. And I think that's the big thing for the Bruins is they can go in with an approach of what they want to build, but if the young guy surprises, if Lysell takes a big step forward, if Dan Zlashmelis takes a big step forward, they're not going to be like, all right, sorry, but like down to Providence with you. Like, I think it's all about finding that. I think with this team where they are so established talent deficient, if any young guy pops, you're going to give them an opportunity. If Blumel looks legit, you're going to give them an opportunity. If Lashmelis accelerates his timeline, you're going to roll with it. Lysell, all those guys. So I think the Bruins are going in with an idea of what they're trying to build with their lineup. But I think, as is the case, probably every training camp, you go in with the best laid plans, but they sometimes don't work out the way you were expecting. The Bruins 2 years ago weren't going to the year, but like, all right, we got this lineup, and we don't have Bergeron and these guys anymore, so it's gonna be tough. But like, don't worry, guys, we got Matt Poitras, an 18-year-old Matt Poitras, ready to go. Like, no, that was they didn't expect that to happen. So I think it's all about trying to read and see where this lineup is going to be in the next couple of weeks. But a whole lot can change between now and then, and I think that's maybe the best way to approach this as the Bruins try to figure out where the puzzle pieces kind of fit moving forward.
If there was ever a training camp for young players to pop, it is this one.
Yes.
It is this one. This is your year. If you're a young guy, you're listening to us, you're avidly listening to Poke the Bear as you run on the treadmill or work out. This is your year. This is your year. This is the year to do it. You know what else it's time to do? Subscribe to Bruins Ringside on YouTube. Subscribe, turn on notifications. It's all free. Podcasts throughout the week, 6 a week. Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat, Pucks with Haggs, live streams, analysis, breakdowns, all that great stuff. And if you don't like looking at us, if you're a player working out, you can't watch us. You got to listen. You got to lock into your workout.
They have the
Subscribe
Peloton.
wherever you get it. That's right. Yeah. Well, Peloton, there's usually an instructor, right?
No, you can do all sorts of stuff now. You can put YouTube on there.
Oh,
so you can be pedaling away, and it's like, I'm Mr. Beast, and I bought Alcatraz. It's like you can do that while you're working out. I don't know. I've never watched Beast. I've never watched Mr.
the White
Beast.
House.
Yeah, I've never seen. I just know of the name, but I know he makes videos like that. So,
bro, he owns the NFL now. That's crazy.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah. Well, the NFL did a promo where Mr. Beast bought the NFL. So there you go. I just especially all the kids listening to this are like, shut the fuck up.
I know. Listen, this was an informative thing here. I mentioned that, you can go on YouTube now on the Peloton. So you can be pedaling away and see us talk and listen to us talk about the Bruins.
Yeah, you can subscribe and watch it on your Peloton. That's pretty sick. So go do that, or you can listen if you're more traditional and wherever you get your podcasts from. And then there's also a lot of other great stuff at CLNS, be it Patriots Press Pass, Celtics All Access. Those are all in full swing. First preseason game on Sunday night. They play the Caps at 5 at the Garden.
I will not be there.
That's right. You have Patriots, right?
I will be at Gillette. So I could try to drive back afterwards, but that would serve no one.
No, you'd listen to the game on the radio.
Yeah.
What are you I know I'm very interested in line combinations and how those young guys play, because it's the first preseason game, so you're going to see a lot of young guys. It's going to look more like a Providence lineup than a Boston lineup. But I am looking for who pops, who stands out, to me, and especially up front. Up front is my main source of focus. Is Blumel playing? Is Poitras playing? Is Lysell playing? And how are they doing? That's my biggest focus. when I assume you'll watch the game later, I'm curious what you'll be looking for.
Yeah, I kind of agree that I'm expecting a lot of really young players in the lineup for that game on Sunday. And I feel like the first preseason game is where the guys that position themselves to make a push for NHL reps, to be that kind of training camp surprise, that's where they put the first bricks down and lay that foundation. I feel like Poitras had a really good preseason debut, and that kind of put him on the radar. I think you see that with a lot of these types of players, that's where you start building some momentum. So whether that's a guy like Blumel, maybe he gets power play 1 reps on that group and he makes the most of it. If it's a guy like Lysell who's trying to set the tone and establish himself, Fraser Minton who's trying to show that, hey, if you want a trustworthy third line, I'm still your guy. Like, look at like the all situations I could play, getting a lot of minutes on a younger lineup, kind of the same thing he did with the Prospects Challenge. Even a guy like Lashmelis, who we've talked about, that like wouldn't be surprised if he makes a push. If any one of those guys, I think, really takes a step forward and produces on Sunday, I think that bears watching in terms of like, all right, they're making their presence felt, and now how do they build off of that? And I think it's all about, for the same thing with Poitras a few years ago. It's like you're just stacking good days. Like Poitras, like no one was really expecting much out of him other than like, all right, he's going to go back to juniors after the next couple of weeks. Oh, he has a good preseason game. Oh, wow, he's feeling confident. You're seeing him more in practice. Oh, they give him another game, keeps on producing. And it's just one day after the other, building up that kind of production and that track record. And I think for a lot of these younger players who have a great opportunity in front of them, it's going to start on Sunday. So I think that's what I'll be watching as I'm at the Gillette Stadium,
As the
seeing the
Patriots are down
traffic,
like
seeing the traffic leave Route 1, waiting for it to die down. I'll be watching from afar.
as the Patriots are down like 36 nothing at the end. Well, it'll be long gone. The game will be over by then.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
they'll have lost 36 nothing. Then you'll be watching the Bruins on the side. I like Drake May though. So for prize picks, I like that. So they won't be losing 36 nothing. There you go.
Of course.
Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read my stuff over at theglobeandboston.com. Well, you covered every step of the way this Bruins season, from training camp to the regular season till maybe the playoffs. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. However long the season goes, we'll have you covered every step of the way. So please read my stuff over at boston.com and the Boston Globe. If you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofski. Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.